I want to toss now to Dimitri Roberts. He is a former FBI counterterrorism task force officer and former Chicago police officer. He's on the phone with us right now. Dimitri, how are you?
I'm doing very well, DeMarco. How are you?
Good, good. I know every time we talk to you, it's always something serious going on, so forgive us for that, but we appreciate you for joining us tonight. What do you make of what's going on right now? This was an explosive device that happened in a busy area, a heavily populated area in the Chelsea neighborhood here in Manhattan.
Yeah, well, a couple of things. And first of all, thank goodness that though there were some injured, and the reports are saying that there was one critically injured, that nobody is seriously further injured at this hour and that there were no deaths. Obviously, this could have been much more devastating given the size of this explosion and given that this is a busy night in New York City. So thank goodness for those things. My thoughts on this are pretty simple, and that is this looking at as being an intentional act at this point lends me to believe that the NYPD has enough information to rule out initial terrorism ties. But looking at some previous terrorism situations and incidents and some that I've been a part of as well as investigations, this shows you that whoever committed this act obviously did it with a sense to cause more of a disturbance and not necessarily commit an act of terrorism. They placed it in the garbage can. They didn't place it in the middle of an intersection or a highly occupied area.
So it doesn't appear to be sophisticated, a sophisticated act.
Absolutely, and that's a great way to put it, DeMarco. And what we've seen in the past is most terrorism-related incidents focus on a lot of mass trauma, if you will, and those devices are usually placed in areas where it's going to yield a high level of injury. Unfortunately, in this incident, we see that that's not the case.
Dimitri, they're also monitoring the area of 27th Street and 7th Avenue, looking for a possible second device that could be in that area as well. Does that mean that, this is the new way of life for New Yorkers here? And now we have to be concerned about walking by garbage cans?
I wouldn't say it's the new way for New Yorkers or anybody else in this country. I think since in the post 9/11 era, we all have to be on a much higher alert than we once were. But more so, the NYPD were very prepared to address issues like this. And I don't think that this is a broader situation that we're seeing here, but a very isolated one. You always have to look for secondary devices when you're dealing with situations like this. But what we've seen in the past, that in most cases, these are kind of false positives, but really just the police departments or agencies like the FBI responding to things from a heightened level of awareness, but these don't usually yield positive results.
Of course, we don't have a suspect at this hour, but if you could, you've covered terrorism for quite some time now, a busy police officer there in the city of Chicago as well. Could you put us in the mind of someone who would want to do something like this?
Well, you're looking at someone who wants to obviously bring some attention to a cause that they're advocating for. They may have not had a voice around an issue that's important to them, but more so they want it to be disruptive more than they want it to be destructive. So when we look at a situation like this, this device could have easily have been placed in a much more populated area. In this situation, it was placed in a garbage can, which is what very thankfully has led to just injuries and not deaths at this point. So I believe you're probably looking at someone who probably is dealing with some type of emotional challenge, some type of crises in their lives, but wanted to gain some attention or some awareness around an issue that's really important to them.
Dimitri, authorities say they do have video of the explosion. What exactly will they be looking for in those pictures?
Well, obviously, they're going to be looking for placement of the device. They're going to be looking for areas that they can look for other perspectives about other devices that may be placed, but they're looking for patterns. They're looking to see if this is an isolated incident, which I think it is, but they're also looking to see if this is a part of something that has been, downloaded from an internet video? Is it something that's a tactic that's been used by a military member? So you can kind of gauge these things based on what you see on videos like that.
And I guess right now they're calling it an isolated incident here and not connecting it to the incident that happened in New Jersey, but they're very similar. This morning, what are the odds? There's an explosive device that is detonated in a garbage can. It possibly could have gone off when there were hundreds of people that were expected to be in that area. It goes off, and then later tonight you have this incident in Manhattan in the Chelsea neighborhood. And still, at this point, we do not know if the two are connected.
Well, DeMarco, I have to challenge that perspective. And in my experience, there are not too many coincidences when it comes to bombs being placed or IEDs being placed, particularly at events. So I think the police department in New York, New Jersey, as well as the FBI are taking cautious approaches to these situations that may seem isolated on the surface, but it would be my sense and from my experience that somehow they're connected on the back end.
Yeah, is that a danger in sort of releasing that information or the possible theory that could be, the case, saying that in front of reporters and to the people here in New York, people who call New York and New Jersey home? Is that a way of sort of like keeping us from becoming too alarmed?
Well, there always has to be a very careful balance with information that you're giving to the public while you're conducting an ongoing investigation. And they're taking the right precautions, but understand that their number one perspective is public safety. Their process and the back-end process, which I've been a part of on several occasions, is very complex. But the New York as well as the New Jersey police departments and the FBI have been collaborating, and collaboration is key in these situations, but they're also thinking beyond the current situation. So you're going to see them address these issues very cautiously with the public safety in mind first.
All right, Dimitri, as we continue to look at these pictures coming into our studio here, you can see that NYPD, they're pretty much everywhere, along with FDNY and also the FBI. You got a number of agencies who are working this situation here. You yourself worked with the Chicago Police Department, a very large police force, as is here for NYPD. Tell us why this city, and specifically your city as well, and cities like Los Angeles, are pretty much prepared to handle situations like this so quickly.
Well, it's
how?
Preparation. Yeah, well, it's preparation. It's the same reason that as a military member, we were prepared to take on some really tough situations as well. But preparation has led to efficiency, and it's led to them effectively addressing these situations. But understand something, in our post 9/11 world, there's been a lot more resources, funding, as well as preparation that has gone into being prepared for these events that wasn't there before. And how is it done? Well, this is where you get into the resources that are made available, more officers, more perspective being put towards these issues, and us being more resilient and more focused around the issues that we have to face in the days that we live in. So there's a lot that goes into it, but I commend my fellow officers as well as the FBI for the response, for the great job that they continue to do. I know how tough it is to get out there and to deal with these issues, but more so we have to continue to have the community support. We continue to have the funding and the resources available to address these real tough issues, because what we know is that it's not a problem until something like this, a bomb goes off in the middle of New York City on a Friday night, where these things really become relevant.
You're looking at a city, 8 million people, more than 8 million people call this place a home. So many people in the tri-state area as well. And you sort of say to yourself, it's just a matter of time, especially when you look at the incidents that have happened in Paris and across the world, the San Bernardino incident. New Yorkers, I walk down the street pretty much just about every day, and I'm like, okay, you know what? At some point, something's going to happen. Is there, or will there ever be a way to stop this, to put a stop to nonsense like this? And how do you do it as an average, normal person who's calling this place home anywhere in the country?
Well, I don't think that you'll ever be able to stop somebody who has ill intent or who plans on doing somebody else harm. I think the best thing that we can do as citizens, but more so as Americans, is to continue to be vigilant, continue to support our law enforcement officers, continue to support the policies that help to protect our cities as well as our country, but also continue to fight for the things that we need to make sure that we are a unified body and we're unified moving forward so we can be more resilient together around these issues. But to answer your question further, it's really tough. But I know very well as a law enforcement officer that there's a criminal intent that's out there. There are bad people that want to do harm to others. And we have to continue to focus, be resilient, and come together around these things and ensure that we're focusing our efforts, our energy, and our resources where it's necessary.
All right, and a final question for you. There are people watching tonight. There are people who are good people, those who are bad folks. Are you concerned about copycats, and should authorities be worried?
We should always be. And it's not just because of this act, but because other people get inspired by other people's nonsense. And we have to be vigilant. That's why it's very important when you see something, say something. If it's out of place and it's out of place to you, it's probably that way to somebody else. And so if you see something that's out of place, and this is what I call on viewers tonight, this is what I call on, our public, our American people as just citizens. Nobody is just a citizen anymore. We all have to understand that we have a role in our own safety. So if there's something out of place or you know somebody that's traveling a path that could lead to an incident like this, the sooner it gets into law enforcement hands, the better we are to address these issues sooner than later.
All right, Dimitri Roberts, former FBI counterterrorism task officer and former Chicago police officer. Thank you so much for joining us tonight and speaking with us. We appreciate you and thank you for sharing your expertise.
Thank you.